अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रैरुक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्भिः किन्तु प्रभोर्यः प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरोः श्रीचरणारविन्दम्। यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्याप्रसादान्न गतिः कुतोऽपि ध्यायन्स्तु अंस्तस्य यशस्त्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरोः श्रीचरणारविन्दम्। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। सर्वेभ्यो नमस्काराः. Welcome to this session. So we will do a quick recap of where we were in the last session. We were talking about the Janma Mahotsava of Krishna. Just after he was born, the next day, Nanda, Vasudeva of course had got freedom from the prison of Kamsa by virtue of Yogamaya scolding Kamsa and letting him go. But here in Gokul, in Nanda's house, Nandotsava. So huge festivities took place in great happiness, and we heard some scenes that happened there. Subsequently, Nanda and some Gopas with him visit Mathura to pay the taxes, and they meet Vasudeva. Vasudeva wants them to come back quickly so that they can ensure that nothing goes wrong. He is afraid that something may go wrong. By the time they reach back, Putana has already come. Putana visits Nanda's house to kill baby Krishna, but Putana is liberated by Krishna. We heard this narrative of how Krishna sucks her life out and she gets mukti. And here, Sri Vyasdev makes this very profound observation. He says, Putana loka balagni rakshasi rudhirashana jighamsayapi haraye stanam datvapa sadgatim kim punah shraddhaya bhaktya krishnaya paramatmane yachan priyatamam kim nu raktastanmataro yata padbhyam bhakta hridisthabhyam vandyabhyam lokavanditaihi angam yasya samakramya bhagavanapi tatstanam यातु धान्यपि सा स्वर्गम अवाप जननी गतिम कृष्ण भुक्तस्तन क्षीराः किमु गावो नु मातरः. So Putana, even though she was a Rakshasi, very wicked at heart, because she came as a mother and Krishna accepted her milk, so he not only had her milk but he also sucked her life out. In the process of doing that, he gave her mukti. He gave her complete freedom. What is meant by mukti? Mukti means freedom from the suffering that one has accumulated because of one's papa karma. It's also freedom from all the punya karma that one might have accumulated in their lifetimes. And it means complete freedom from complete liberation from the hands of the three gunas of Prakriti. One is then situated in one's original Swarupa as the Jivatma, the Shuddha Jivatma. That is the basic position of mukti. Of course, beyond that is bhakti, prema bhakti, which is far beyond mukti. But Putana was not gifted with that. She was gifted with sayujya mukti, basic form of mukti, where she is completely liberated. So that blessing is not given easily. Even great yogis, they do enormous amount of tapasya. They acquire jnana. They practice tapasya to be able to get jnana. They have to control their mind. They have to live in very austere conditions. It is not easy to do that. They do that and still they may not get mukti. But Putana got that mukti. And so Sri Vyasdev says, how kind is Sri Bhagavan? He uses kaimutya nyaya. Kaimutya nyaya means what to speak of. That phrase in English we say what to speak of. Even this he did, then what to speak of the bigger things. So what is the bigger thing here? He talks about the bhaktas. The bhaktas like Yashoda, the gopis and the other the go matas. So what did they do? They fed their genuine milk with genuine love, with pure love. They fed their milk to Krishna. Then what will they get? They will definitely get something much higher. So they will get Krishna Prema. And he concludes the 6th chapter of the Dashama Skandha of Srimad Bhagavatam by saying that one who even listens to this with Shraddha, this narrative of Putana with Shraddha will be able to get that same prema. So we go forward, and what do we hear next? We go to the 7th adhyaya, the 7th chapter, and here Shri Vyasdevji begins with this shloka. Parikshit is asking Shukamuni, Shri Rajo Vacha Yena Yenavatarena Bhagavan Haririshwaraha Karoti Karma Ramyani Manojnani Jamnah Prabho Yachrinvato Vitrishna Sat Vitrishna Satvam Cha Shuddhayatyachireena Pumsaha Bhaktir Harau Tat Purushe Cha Sakhyam Tadevaharam Vadamanyase Chet. He says, whatever avatars that Sri Bhagavan performs, so many avatars, he comes again and again. These are all Karnaramyani, means they are so pleasing to hear, and they are Manojnani. They give so much happiness to the mind. They are very pleasing to the mind. And by hearing them, yet Shrinvataha, for a person who is hearing them, Apaiti, Ratihi, Vitrishna. Ratihi means the Aratihi, sorry, Aratihi and Vitrishna, two things. That is deep bondage to this world, greed, the thirst for material pleasures. This is taken away. Apaiti Ratihi. Sattvam cha shuddhayati. It purifies their existence. Complete existence is purified. Achirena. Very quickly, not by a long process, lot of delay, but somebody who does this genuinely listens to these narratives, it completely purifies them. And then bhakti hi harau tat purusheja sakhyam. So unto Hari, one develops bhakti, prema bhakti, and one develops sakhyam, means a sakhya bhav or friendship, realizing that the Supreme Bhagavan is not just some universal power, but my dear friend. Okay, that realization comes. Tadeva haram. Please tell me those narratives. Manyase chet, if you are willing to. So he's pleading with Shukamuni that please continue telling these narratives. I am liking them so much. Athanyadapi Krishnasya toka charitam manusham lokamasadya tajjatim anurundhataha. So, and tell me other narratives also specific to the kind of activities he did when he was a small child. Toka charitam. Tokaha, small child. Those charitam. So, toka acharitam, tokaha acharitam, the one that was performed, activities performed as a child. Adbhutam, those fascinating childlike activities that he performed. Manusham lokam asadhya, taking the body of a human being and doing activities that jati manurundhataha, while doing activities which were just like human beings, those of human beings. So please narrate to me those particular activities. I want to eagerly hear them. So this is this way in which Parikshit is expressing his eagerness to hear. When a listener narrates this, when a listener says this to a speaker, the speaker becomes even more motivated or energized to speak because he knows that the listener is taking interest. So Shukamuni narrates the next incidents which happened there, and in this narrative we hear about three different incidents that happened that we are going to listen to today. First is when there was an incident when festivities were taking place in Nanda's house, and this was done when baby Krishna turned on his side. You see, when a baby is born and immediately it is given rest, it is laid on its back, not on its stomach. It lays on its back and it is fed like that. It is always on its back. But at some point of time, when the baby develops some strength after, let's say, a few months, then the baby turns on its side. The first time it turns on its side and it falls over, it falls on its belly. At that time, it's considered as the first milestone has been crossed by the baby. Baby has now grown. Some of the parts of the baby's body and mind have grown, so it is now turned over by itself. It has now turned over. So that's a big moment of celebration in our culture, in our Samskriti. And festivities are performed. Krishna Abhishek is done. So Krishna Abhishek was done in the house with directly to Krishna himself. And the Brahmanas, very qualified Brahmanas, were invited They chanted the Vedas, and a lot of dan was given to them. Very liberally, dan is given to the Brahmanas. Whatever they have in mind is given to them because they are worthy people. So then Yashoda Ma, she was looking at Krishna and she was trying to make him happy. But after some time, she observed that her baby was feeling sleepy and she lulled him to sleep on a mattress so that she could continue with the activities of the festival. So as the festival continued, Krishna was sleeping below a large cart. So there was a large cart in some part of the festival area, and that cart was loaded with several pots of milk, butter, etc. This was the food available to be distributed to the guests. Later on, the food would be distributed to everyone. So abundance of food is there for the feast, and that's loaded on a large cart and kept in the side. So baby Krishna was put there at that point of time because probably Mother Yashoda thought she could keep an eye on him somewhere nearby. But she got busy with the festivities, and after some time, Krishna woke up and started feeling hungry. And there was no one to feed him at that time. So the only thing a baby can do is to start weeping and asking for milk. So Krishna starts weeping. But Yashoda Ma cannot hear because she's away and she's talking to her guests and so on. There's a lot of festival sound happening. So she's not able to hear. So Krishna is now flapping his hands and feet, and the feet touches the cart. The leg hits the cart, and instantly the cart topples over with a crashing sound. And all the parts of the cart, they come apart. They break up. The cart breaks up, and the pots, they crash to the ground. So the pots crash to the ground and the cart crashes to the ground. So there's a huge crashing sound, and everybody rushes over when the sound comes. So then they realize that this has happened and they don't know how it has happened. After all, a baby was sleeping there. How can a cart suddenly, a big, large cart suddenly topple over? What could have toppled it over? So as they are looking and thinking over it, Uchur avyavasitamatin gopan gopischa balakaha rudatanena padeta shiptam etanna samshayaha. So the children, there are some other children, the Gopi children and the Gopas children, they're all playing in the side. So they have seen what happened because they were watching the child. As they were playing, they were seeing the child. They saw the child was crying and asking for milk. And as they saw the child, they saw the leg of the child hitting the cart. And then they saw the cart toppling over. So they are telling this to the Gopas who come there to see the Gopas and Gopis. Uchuhu avyavasita matin means the Gopas and Gopis are disturbed in their mind. So the balakaha, the children, they tell them that look, anena rudata, by this child which was crying, padena kshiptam, by his leg, he has toppled the cart over. Etanna samshayaha, there is no doubt in this. The children don't find it anything astonishing because they saw the child hitting the cart with the leg. In their mind, so what? The child has hit the cart and the cart toppled over. They're not thinking, how can a small child topple over a cart? So they just report this to the Gopas and Gopis. But the Gopas and Gopis, nate shraddhadhire gopaha balabhashitamityuta aprameyam balam tasya balakasya nate viduhu. So Gopas obviously could not believe it. Arey, child, a small baby, these children, balabhashitam, these are small children, what do they know? How can a small baby topple a cart? Is it possible? Bala bhashitam ityuta. They said, Arey, children are saying it. So they would have said, ah, ha, 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 theek hai, chalo, chalo. You go back to play. Go back and play. And then between themselves, they are discussing, how is it possible? How this cart would have fallen over? Because Vyasdev ji says, Aprameyam balam tasya balakasya tena viduhu. They did not know that this child, who the other children said was the cause of toppling the chart, they didn't know that this child was not an ordinary child and he had aprameya bala. Aprameya means that which is immeasurable. Aprameya. Prameya means that which is measurable or accountable or which is tangible. So here aprameyam balam means that which is immeasurable, infinite. They didn't know that this child was a child of infinite strength. and they didn't know about it. And Krishna never revealed that to them. So this first story ends in this manner with the Gopas and Gopis watching the cart toppling and coming to know the cart has toppled. The children have watched it tell them, but they can't accept it. And they just give up after some time that, okay, somehow it toppled, now let's put it back. So they put it back. They very quickly reassemble the cart because the festivities have to continue. They put all the pots back and scatter all the food and everything is restored properly. And then they go back to the festival. And this incident ends happily. Now, in other Shastra, in the Bhagavatam, it is not mentioned that there was an asura here who was hiding below the cart, and Krishna actually killed that asura by doing this. In the process of kicking the cart, that was the Leela. It was not just to topple the cart, but to actually deliver the asura who had come to kill Krishna. So this is not given in either in the Bhagavatam or in the Mahabharata in the Harivamsha. It's not given in the Harivamsha as well, but it is given in another place called Garga Samhita. So from there, this revelation comes that this cart actually was the hiding place. The cart was the cart, but Asura came in an invisible form and he was hiding there. And by kicking this cart, Sri Bhagavan actually liberated him. And that was the purpose behind which Bhagavan did this Leela. So this is called Shakatasura Bhanjana Leela. Next, it's another incident where one day Mother Yashoda is feeding baby Krishna. She's feeding him her milk. And as she is feeding, suddenly she starts feeling that he's very heavy. The baby seems to be heavy, so she's not able to understand its body has become heavy like a rock. So she thinks probably she has got tired of holding him because sometimes we hold an object, even if it's a light object, if you hold it for a very long time, then it feels heavy, it feels very tiring. So she feels tired of holding him, so she keeps him down somewhere and then she goes back to her household work. In the meantime, Asura by name Trinavarta, a Daitya, is sent by Kamsa. So Kamsa is sending all these people one by one, and he comes with the intention to kill Krishna. And he takes the form of a tornado. That's why he's called Trinavarta. Trinavarta means a cyclone or a tornado. So he comes there, and he comes in the form of a tornado. In North India, it's not uncommon to have, in the summer months particularly, these huge tornadoes, dust storms coming. So it's, you can say, a huge dust storm suddenly comes and occupies the whole region, and nobody can see anything. But this is more than just a normal dust storm. It's actually like a huge tornado. And so what Trinavarta does is he picks up the baby and he takes him very high into the air, and he covers the land of Vraja with enormous amount of dust and sound. There's so much dust and sound that nobody can see anything, they can't hear anything, it's deafening. Everywhere there is things flying around, leaves, branches are falling, there's all dust, nobody can see what is where. So naturally, Mother Yashoda, she looks for her baby. Naturally, what will a mother do? If a mother has kept a baby somewhere, the first thought that will come is, I should take the baby to a safe place. So she goes to the place where she kept Krishna, but she finds that the baby is now not there. And immediately she can't search also because it's all covered with dust. She can't see anything. So she starts wailing, just like when a cow finds its calf missing. The cow starts shedding tears and the cow becomes very, very anxious. And so Mother Yashoda becomes very anxious and she falls senseless. And hearing her wails, the other gopis also reach there and they start crying in great anxiety. They start crying in great anxiety. And when this happens, Trinavarta is happily taking Krishna to the top. What his plan is to take Krishna very, very high in the air and then drop him probably and then kill the child like that. Nobody can survive, not to speak of a small baby. But as he takes Krishna higher and higher, he starts feeling Krishna's weight is increasing. His weight is increasing, he's becoming heavier and heavier to hold. Suddenly he feels, I'm carrying a huge mountain. I'm not carrying a baby anymore. It's like a massive mountain I'm carrying. So he slows down. His speed becomes very slow. He slows down enormously and then he finds Krishna has gripped his throat. He tries to free himself, but he cannot. Krishna's grip is so strong that Trinavarta becomes breathless. His lungs burst and his eyes explode and he just loses his consciousness and just crashes to the ground, crashes on a rock, and he's completely smashed to bits. So when this happens, the gopis hear that sound of something crashing. They go to that place and then they see baby Krishna is there, as normal as he was always. And now he is holding on to what was the chest of that Trinavarta. So they are shocked to hear this. They pick up the baby. They then offer their love. They are so grateful that the baby has survived and nothing has happened to it. They can imagine that the storm must have blown the baby from where it was kept to this place, but they don't know anything more than that. So they pick up the baby and then they say, "Oh God, we are so fortunate. Some punya we must have done in the past that our child is now safe. Nothing has happened to this child." And they offer their prayers to Vishnu, different forms of Vishnu, and they pray for protection in future so that nothing happens to this baby in the future. So this narrative is about how Trinavarta gets liberated. Sri Bhagavan performs this lila to bless Trinavarta with again a form of mukti. He delivers Trinavarta from his wicked nature. The third incident is when Yashodama is feeding milk to baby Krishna once again. And this time, Krishna drinks completely. The milk is flowing naturally out of love. You see, when a mother feels extreme love for the child, like any mother would do, then milk naturally flows. She doesn't have to make an effort to make it flow. And the baby is sucking and the milk flows out of her breast. So at that point of time, Krishna drinks completely and he's so satisfied. He smiles very sweetly at her and she smiles at him and she kisses him. That's a very loving scene between them. And then baby Krishna yawns wide. And then Mother Yashoda, in that wide yawn in his mouth, what does she see? Khamrodasi jyotirani kamashaha suryendu vannishwasanambudhischa Deepannaganstadhuitravanani bhutani yani stirajangamani. So what she saw, Sri Vasudevji describes here in this, she saw the entire outer space come. Rodasi, Rodasi refers to the heavenly, the Swargalokas, and even sometimes the Bhuloka. The Bhuloka, Swargaloka, the upper planetary systems. The higher planetary systems are referred to by the word Rodasi. So she saw that. Jyotiranikam, the entire array of all the luminaries, when we look up at the night sky, we see an enormous amount of stars and planets. And today, of course, in the modern world, we also see satellites that have been launched by human beings. Then we see the moon sometimes. So the entire array, Jyotiranikam, means all the luminaries, the army of luminaries. Ashaha, the directions, the 10 directions. Suryendu refers to Surya and Indu. Surya means the sun, Indu means the moon. Vanni, fire, Agni. Shvasanam Budimsya. Shvasana means Vayu, the Vayu Deva, Vayu. Ambudhi means oceans. She sees all the oceans. Then in the oceans, Dvipan, the islands are different Dvipas, the continents basically, in the oceans. And Nagams refers to the mountains, the Parvatas. Tad Duhitra Vanani. Duhitra means the daughters of the mountains. Duhita. Duhita means daughter. Daughters of the mountains refers to the rivers flowing from the mountains, the forests which are on the mountains. Vanani, Bhutani, Yani, and all the creatures which live in the forests and other places. Yani Bhutani, Stirajangamani, both the moving creatures and the non-moving creatures, the plants, the animals, the insects, birds, everything, moving and non-moving, everything she sees. Everything in the universe suddenly is seen inside Krishna's mouth. And she's in total shock. She says, what am I seeing this here? Right? So this is the first time that Krishna gives her this Vishwarupa Darshan very briefly. Once again, after some time, we will see one more instance where she sees this when Krishna eats mud. And she asks him to open his mouth. That's the second time. So this is the first time. And she doesn't know what she's seeing. She's not able to interpret it. Because after all, just a cowherd boy's child, a cowherd's child, a small cowherd baby. And what is it that I'm saying? Am I imagining something? So she's not able to make out. She thinks for some time and then she excuses herself from that. It's over. So all the time, you see, three Leelas we listen to, and we we know why they are experiencing all this, but the Gopas, the Gopis, and the cowherd children, they have no idea that the person who is in the middle of them is not just another human child, but somebody very special. It is that same Bhagavan whom they worship, and because of their nature, or because of something in them, he reveals these kind of activities to them uniquely. Nobody outside Vraja is able to see Bhagavan in this manner, in this madhurya, in this sweetness, this extreme sweetness which he reveals to them. Nobody else is able to see. So this also tells us, you see, through Bhagavatam, which is not this kind of leelas are not described even in the Mahabharata, or for that matter, in the Harivamsha they are mentioned, but the way in which they are described here is very distinct. That madhurya is brought out by Sri Vyasdev ji in a very nice manner. So this shows us that that universal power, you see, a large number of people in this world accept that there is a reality which is higher than what we see and experience with our own eyes. In our own eyes, we see fellow human beings, we see animals, we see insects, we see other forms of life, we see non-life, we see matter, we see the space, we see so many things, and we know that much directly through our pratyaksha. But apratyaksha, which is not visible to us, is the presence of the universal power, that universal being. But many people in this world accept that there is something higher than what we can see. They accept that there is something which can be called as God. And of course, there are atheists also who don't accept. There are people in between who are agnostics, who are skeptic about it. But a large number of people do accept. But even those who accept, they don't realize that there is a nature like this to Bhagavan. Only a few people who study the Bhagavatam or hear about the Bhagavatam, they come to know this. Most people have an understanding that there is an universal power which controls different things. Some people think of that power as a energy which energizes everything, with whom there is a harmony in this world, and to whom we are accountable. There's something called accountability to God. Even in modern Western research, there is a construct called accountability to God. Those of you who are studying IKS can look at that construct. So there are different ways in which God is realized. There's God is understood, realized, approached by different people. Some people only for you can say intellectual reasons. Some people go beyond intellectual reason. They want to actually experience God. But everybody has different forms of God, and many people think of God as somebody who just provides what we require. We are here to enjoy this world, and God is the provider of all that enjoyment. So we should always worship God, because only when we worship God, we can get that enjoyment or that happiness that we are eligible for. But in this very fine text called Srimad Bhagavatam, this Madhurya Bhav of Sri Bhagavan is revealed. And so we ask the question, why is it that it is revealed only to a small population? Why does Sri Krishna give himself so closely to the people of Vraja and not to anyone else? We can recollect that a few sessions back we talked about how when Krishna was born, Vasudeva and Devaki, his own parents, they bow down to him and they offer prayers to him. So even they are not able to relate with Krishna in this manner that the people of Vraja are able to relate. They see him as Bhagavan, that Adi Purusha. They have complete Gyan. But even in that complete Gyan, this Gyan about Sri Bhagavan's very innocent nature, that sweetness, most natural nature is missing. So the answer lies in the Bhagavatam itself, that there's something called as Seva Bhav. And the Seva Bhav, in its most pure form, the purest form, is present in Vraja. And to understand what Seva Bhav is, we must also understand its contrasting, its antithesis. It's called Swartha Bhav. So when we contrast something with its opposite, then we understand that thing very well. We understand both very well. So with this contrast today, we will try to understand the difference between Seva Bhav and Swartha Bhav, and thereby we will try to understand what Seva Bhav is and what the people of Raja have in them which attracts Krishna to them. Krishna becomes so obliged to give himself to them that he cannot stop himself. That power of Seva Bhav controls him. So to understand Seva Bhav is not difficult. It's very, very simple. Seva Bhav is described, for example, very well in the shloka, which is taught in the Indian knowledge system. to even small school children. This is one of the shlokas taught in elementary school. It's very easy to learn, very easy to understand. It says, Paropakaraya phalanti vrikshaha, Paropakaraya vahanti nadyah, Paropakaraya duhanti gavaha, Paropakararthamidam shariram. So, Paropakaraya phalanti vrikshaha. Trees, they produce fruits. Now, trees produce fruits not because they want to eat fruits. They don't eat the fruits. They don't even think they own those fruits. They produce those fruits. Everybody other than them eats the fruits. One tree also does not eat the next tree's fruits. The trees don't eat their own fruits even collectively. Everybody else, the human beings, the animals, insects, birds, they eat the fruits. So, paropakaraya palanti vrikshaha. The trees produce the fruits only for the benefit of others. The others enjoy those fruits. And what do the trees take in return? Okay, now we may think, okay, they're very clever because they get a lot of profit in doing that. But do they take much in return? They hardly take anything in return. For most of the time, maybe when the tree is initially planted, the person who is planting the tree will put some water, fertilizer, or whatever, and ensure that the seed becomes a small sprout, and then the sprout becomes a plant, and the plant then becomes strong enough to grow into a tree. So, in the initial days, the person who has planted a tree will give it some attention. But after that, that attention also stops, and then occasionally something may be put on the tree. But for most of the time, the tree just stands by itself and depends on nature. It takes the sun, it takes the monsoon, it takes the rain, it takes the thunder, it takes the lightning bolts, everything it takes. By itself, it feeds itself. It takes whatever it needs and it takes only what it needs. A tree does not take more than what it requires. And in return, it produces, it converts that water and carbon dioxide and oxygen and whatever it's taking from the nature into sweet fruits. So, paropakaraya phalanti vrikshaha, the fruits it produces are not for any profit making purpose, but for the benefit of others. Similarly, rivers, they carry millions of tons of water every day and they pour that water, they take it from the mountains and then they pour that water into the ocean. So now, what do? Do they drink their water or conserve their water or save their water for themselves? It is for themselves that they are carrying all that water? Not at all. It is for all the other living beings, everything other than themselves. Human beings, again, animals, insects, whatever. They also provide the water for transportation. The water of the river is used for transportation. Enormous transportation happens through the waters of the rivers. So the rivers, they carry the water over thousands of kilometers, but they don't drink their own water. Water is paropakaraya, it's for others. The gavaha, the go refers to a particular species that's found in some parts of the world, including India. It's not found everywhere. Everything that looks like a cow is not a cow. Actually, go, I would not use the word cow because in English, the word cow is misleading. It does not represent completely the word go in Sanskrit. Go refers to only that particular species, which in Latin is called as Bos indicus. A particular species called Bos indicus. But in today's India, we also find another species which is called Bos taurus, which has come from outside because it gives a greater amount of milk for the amount of food feeds, economically more profitable. So people keep that today, and the milk industry uses it because today the percentage of people who do go seva and understand what the go is has decreased considerably from what it was earlier. Earlier, our Bharatiya Samskriti, in fact, this itself can be a topic for a whole massive, or you can say enormous number of research studies on the concept of go seva. Go seva is so central, it occupies the, you can say, the one of the most important economic activities in the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara. You see, our country, Bharat, was such a prosperous country earlier, and the arguments that the scholars give for why it was so prosperous, one of the reasons is that Go Seva was done seriously. Because the understanding was that when you do Go Seva seriously, a lot of economic benefit follows from it. Although it's not very obvious, because after all, if you take care of a cow, what do you get? You can get good milk as long as the cow is able to produce milk. After that, what's the use? The only way you can get something out of it is to kill it and get some meat out of it. That's what today's thinking goes. But in those days, they saw far beyond just that milk and the meat. Of course, meat was never a factor there because nobody killed a cow. But the milk was definitely an important factor. But beyond the milk, it is not just the milk, it's about keeping the go. And because of the go's presence, there was so much indirect effect on the prosperity of the land, which came about because the go was present on that land. Now, how that is so, one has to go through the Shastra, like the Mahabharata, the Smriti Shastra, to understand this in detail. So the go here, only duhanti, only the milk portion is mentioned here. Paropakaraya duhanti gava, it gives milk. And that milk, duhanti, that milk is used to produce buttermilk, and then subsequently first curd and then buttermilk, and then from buttermilk comes butter and then ghee, and then things like from the of course from the butter itself or from the buttermilk itself, paneer is produced, khoa is produced, and so many other things come out of it, and they're also consumed as very nutritious and healthy products in the Indian knowledge and in the Indian culture. Uh, so, but apart from this, all the other economic benefit is not given here. That's not mentioned. That's perfectly fine because this itself is such a major thing. So the point being made here is that whatever the go is producing, whether it's milk or gobar or gomutra, none of it is consumed by the go. The go is giving it only for others. What does it take? It takes just a little bit of, bhusa. In North India, it's called bhusa. It's called trinam in Sanskrit. It eats grass, and along with it, whatever else it can take, the leaves of trees, such kind of things it takes, and converts all of that into very nutritious milk, extremely nutritious milk. You cannot synthesize that milk in a laboratory. It's beautiful. So, gavaha paropakaraya duhanti. So, giving these three examples, the shloka is trying to say that this shariram, this body, is paropakarartham. It is not meant for one's sensual enjoyment. It's not been given as a tool for sensual enjoyment, for maximizing the enjoyment of the different senses in the body, or for accumulating possession and power and status and name and becoming a hero in society. It's not given for that. It is given for paropakarartha. That is what it is meant to be used for. Okay, somebody may say, okay, it may be meant for that, but I don't want to use it like that. I will use it for what I want. Maybe the person who designed my body thought like that. Okay, let them think. I don't agree with them. I want to use my body in the way that gives me happiness. I get happiness when I enjoy my senses. And I get happiness when I become powerful, when other people are bowing down to me, when I show that I am a big hero. That's what I want to use my body for. What is wrong with that? The point is this, that what is wrong with using a plane like a car? A plane is created for flying in the air. And that's what it's capable of doing. But suppose somebody says that he spends a lot of money buying a plane. Okay, let's take a small aircraft. Forget about huge aircraft. Person buys a plane for his own family. Some 6 people can sit on the plane. Okay, one family can fit into a plane. And he can, if he wants to, use the plane to fly in the air and go to mountains, see the beautiful mountains, go to some scenic places, go to far off places in a short time. All that is possible. But he says, why should I use the plane like that? I will drive on the roads, on the highways. I'll remove the wings of the plane. I'll drive it like a car. Who is going to stop me? Maybe the land allows it. They allow a plane also without its wings to fly to it will look like a car. Fine. What is wrong with it? Nothing wrong with it, but it's stupid. That's all. They're not saying anything is ethically wrong with doing like that. Maybe it's not legally wrong also in some countries to do that, but it is stupid. It is not using something for the purpose for which it is meant. It is stupid, right? Suppose somebody buys an expensive mobile phone, let's say an iPhone 16 Pro. It costs more than 1 lakh rupees. Maybe buys the high-end model, a beautiful looking phone. It's got such beautiful features. It can do so many things, and uses that phone like a paperweight because he's sitting under the fan and the paper is blowing here and there. And uses paper. Somebody का अरे क्या कर रहा है? The iPhone 16 Pro है. तो क्या हुआ? तो मैं इसको ऐसे यूज करना चाहता हूँ. तुम कौन हो मेरे को बताने की? So stupid guy, right? Ethically, he has not done anything wrong. If somebody does iPhone 16 Pro as a paperweight. Is it wrong ethically? Ethically, it's not wrong. It's just stupid. That's all. So similarly, the shloka is trying to point out that ethically it may not be wrong, but it's a stupid thing to do because this body has been given, the human body, and it says idam shariram, it means the human, manusha janma, human body, because we are born as animals also in our earlier births. And in future birth also, if we do that kind of karma, we'll take birth again as animals. But in the human body, the body is meant to be used for elevating ourselves. And the way to do it is through paropakar. So paropakar is the essence of all dharma. And the perfection of Paropakar is what we see in the Vraja, in Vraja, where it's form of Seva Bhav. So now quickly we will distinguish between Seva Bhav and Swartha Bhav. Seva Bhav, the word Seva in Seva Bhav, the first term Seva, refers to actions performed with the mind, the speech, and the body to create welfare and happiness for others. Swartha is the exact opposite. We being Indians, we know both these terms very well. Swartha refers to actions performed with the mind, speech, and body for one's own good and welfare, often even at the cost of others' misery. It doesn't matter if others are suffering. How does it matter? As long as I maximize my enjoyment and they cannot do anything to me. वो कुछ नहीं कर सकता है. मैं दिखाऊंगा उसको. So this kind of thinking, Swartha Bhav, and Bhav refers to mentality. Here, Bhav in Sanskrit has got many different meanings as well, but here it refers to the mentality or the consciousness with which that particular action is done. So Seva Bhav and Swartha Bhav. Seva Bhav is a mentality which seeks others' benefit without seeking reciprocation. Only when there is absence of reciprocation or expectation of reciprocation is absent, only then it is Seva Bhav. Otherwise, doing service to somebody thinking that, okay, today I'm doing this to him, I know that I'm creating a deposit in his account. By doing this, I'm creating an obligation by which tomorrow I can go to him and ask for something. If somebody thinks like this, then it is not Seva Bhav. Or at least it's not Seva Bhav in its perfection. It is only maybe partially Seva Bhav, but it is not Seva Bhav in the way in which we want to talk about. We are trying to understand what the Seva Bhav, we're trying to understand the Seva Bhav that the people in Vraja are practicing, because of which Krishna is attracted to them, right? So this mentality is where there is no reciprocation. I just do seva to please the other person, but nothing in return. But Swartha Bhav is the exact opposite, that is done, whatever you do it so that you get something in return. Otherwise, you don't do it. And when you do it, you don't care even if others get miserable. There are three aspects in Seva Bhav. The first aspect is the aspect of Paropakarata, means complete selflessness. The second is the activity of Kartavyata or duty-mindedness, doing something as one's duty, means it is bound upon me to do my work. It is my responsibility. I will do it, right? I'll do it selflessly, but I will do it. I will not shy away from it. And there is genuineness, nishkapatta or non-duplicity. There is no falsity. Sometime back, there was a student who was telling other people, he used to sometimes attend my Bhagavad-Gita class, and he would tell others that he and I are taking the Bhagavad-Gita class together. He would come and sit right up in the front. Okay, when we were holding it in a room, many of you were not there at that time. We would hold it in a room here in the campus. And that time, this person would tell other, he has even told our teen administration, Father Donald. Father Donald told me recently that this fellow came to me and said that he is taking the class along with you. This is called kapatta, falsity. So I told Father Donald, this fellow has not understood even one word of Bhagavad Gita, whoever it was. So this is called kapatta, and nishkapatta is the essence of seva bhav. Kapatta is a part of swartha bhav. So swartha bhav is selfishness, akartavyata, lack of duty-mindedness. There is no sense of duty there. He's only doing everything because he thinks that I will get something in return. And psychophancy, trying to be sycophantic. Always come, yes sir, yes sir, yes sir. No sir, thank you sir, I'm sorry sir. But inside the heart there is no sir, only outside in the mouth it comes. In the mind there is hard-heartedness, wickedness in the mind. Fakeness, complete fakeness. After some time it falls out. Initially it's not visible. We think probably the person, we give the benefit of doubt. But after some time when the person again and again does the same thing, you get to know. So we should be very careful in this world. When we watch people interact with them, we should know that this mentality can exist, and when it comes, we should be able to catch it. Seva bhav is something that is done with the intention of creating happiness for everybody, happiness for all, others' welfare as important as one's own. This thinking is very much there. Of course, in the subconscious mind, there may be a thinking that, yes, it's good for me too. There is that level of swartata. Swartata comes after thinking of others' benefit, paropakarata. So this swartata is something that is, you can say, an outcome of paropakarata. It is not the intention. So in Seva Bhav, one does not seek harm or evil for anyone. One sacrifices one's personal gain to help another person when they are in need. One feels good when the other persons are happy, and one feels concerned when the others suffer. One doesn't want the other person to suffer, even if that other person has been wicked to oneself. And this Seva Bhav has the power, because it's so powerful, it requires strength to practice it. And if one is able to practice it, then one experiences deep happiness within oneself. I'll give you a simple example to understand this. Uh, Sometimes even people who are not really, see, in today's world, we may not find anyone with perfect Seva Bhav. Such a person is very rare, very difficult to find. Similarly, we may not find anyone with perfect Swartha Bhav as well. Okay, what is Swartha Bhav? We will understand this. Reckless and insensitive to others, high expectation of reciprocation. And this is something you will see that is very present in these people, where they very quickly take credit from others for even a small thing they have done. Sometimes they have done nothing. They are part of a team and they do nothing in that team, or they do only a little bit. But if the team wins, then they will make the biggest noise. They will make the biggest sound and they will celebrate in the biggest way, make it appear as if they have done everything to win, whereas they have done nothing. Like I told you, this guy who used to go and say that he was taking the Bhagavad-Gita class along with me, jointly with me, sitting next to me, whereas he did nothing, nothing at all, had no understanding of what Bhagavad-Gita says. So taking credit for others' work and blaming others for one's mistakes, not taking responsibility for them. The person in Seva Bhav takes responsibility even when it is not his mistake, if he is part of the team where something went wrong. Right? This is the opposite mentality. Feels good when others fail or others are unhappy, and feels miserable when others are happy. So when you see somebody failing, Swartha Bhav makes you feel that, very good. This is what hona hi chahiye tha isko. Isko to he deserves it. जो होना था वो हो गया अभी, बहुत अच्छी बात है, उसको तो होना ही था. And when somebody succeeds, externally they may say, congratulations, very good, good, good for you. But internally they are burning with jealousy. They don't like it at all. They're looking for the next occasion to criticize that person. So in this manner, Seva Bhav and Swartha Bhav. Now I'll give you a very simple example by which a person who experiences genuine Seva Bhav also experiences happiness because of that. And even an ordinary person, even you and I might have sometimes experienced this, even though we may not have Raj Bhakti in us. But let us say that you're going on a road, okay, and you're driving on a highway with your family. And after some time, you suddenly see on the highway somebody has fallen on the side. A bike is lying on its side, and there's a human being lying there, maybe a man or a woman, and they are bleeding and something, they are helpless. They're probably asking for help, but they can't get up because they are injured and they're just lying there and nobody is around. Maybe some car or something has hit them, maybe a truck has hit them and they have just gone away. It's very common to have hit and run cases. So they're just lying on the road and you're shocked, and then you stop the car and you get down from the car and you come back and you immediately go to that person. Observe what has happened in that person's body. You examine the person's body and you try to revive that person. And after some time, your family members also join you and together you revive. And then you see that other people are also stopping. They're seeing that you are doing something there on the side of the road and a car is parked. So they come there, they stop, and they also crowd around you and they also are asking what happened. And your family members are explaining that this happened, and there's a big conversation going on, and then slowly everybody together, they provide some water, you revive that person. In the meantime, somebody has called an ambulance shows up, and 4 or 5 people come forward and they lift that person, put him on a stretcher, put him inside, and then that person is just now regained consciousness. They can hardly speak, they're not even able to tell who they are. So ambulance is ready to go, and then somebody in the crowd says, "I will go with them. I will go with them." And then you say, "You thank you." Then you say, "Okay, take some money." You take out some money. You have some money with you. You had brought that money for going to a picnic, but now you're going to get delayed for the picnic. But you're not thinking about the picnic now. You just take that money out and you give it to that person, and then that person says, "Thank you, sir." And the ambulance goes away. That person has taken your number, and the ambulance goes off, and then the crowd slowly disperses, and then you go to your car. You sit in your car. Your family members also come down, sit down, and then you start breathing, and you say, "Ah, I just hope that that person is safe, and ambulance should have reached by now. Let's hope that he will survive." It looked like somebody just like us. It was somebody just like us. Maybe he's some engineer working somewhere, young guy. He's got a future. Thank God, we could do something for him. And then you're still anxious whether he lived or not. So after about an hour or so, you get a call from that guy who took him there, and he says, "Sir, सब ठीक है. आपका जो help हुआ था वो बहुत अच्छा था." And you hear that and you feel so good about it. Now, in the process, what has happened is that you were actually 1 hour late for the picnic that you were all going to, and half the picnic had got over without you. People had started, and they were wondering why you didn't come, because they were expecting that you would be there and you would be one of the important people, but they didn't find you, and they were trying to call you, but you were not responding because your phone was in the car. And then you 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 tell them what happened, but you have lost 1 hour of the picnic, and you also lost some money. Money went away, but you are not thinking about it. You're just thinking about that guy, and you're thinking that that guy is now safe, and you feel so good about it. And you don't talk about it. You're not going to make a show out of it. You're not going to go and tell everybody I did it, because internally in your heart you feel, ah, I'm feeling fulfilled. I'm feeling so good about it, right? Anybody here has had that experience? You can share with me later after I unmute you. But this kind of experience is an instant of spontaneous seva bhav which comes to us when we see somebody requiring our help, and we suddenly feel that it's our duty, or it comes to us spontaneously. It's not logical. And we just go and help. We sacrifice many other things. We may lose something else in the process, but we just do it at that point of time. So when this is done, this kind of thinking exists in our life. In our life, we are not going to see an accident every moment. So we are going to live a normal life with so many activities going on. But if every moment our mind is oriented towards thinking that whatever I do, I should do it in a manner that doesn't hurt anybody, but which actually gives benefit to others, where there is no falsity, absolutely no falsity, which benefits others. Of course, it may not always be pleasant to others. Sometimes in our responsibility in our work, we have to do something which may be unpleasant to others. Now, as a professor, I have to mark somebody absent, or I have to catch somebody if they are copying in the exam and punish them. Or if somebody is lying, I have to tell them you're lying, you're a chore. I have to scold them. That is part of my job as a teacher, right? It's not a pleasant thing to do. But then being pleasant is not some artificial thing. Being pleasant means thinking about the long term welfare of that person and the long term welfare of the society as a whole, and doing the right thing. So this becomes seva bhav when we think of society, think of our sacrifice, and sacrifice as the cost of doing good to society. And this becomes the essence of seva bhav. So Seva Bhav it builds upon, I'll just speak a little bit more, and then I will stop and ask your comments. And this is the famous Bhagavad Gita shloka where Seva Bhav is intrinsically present. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hetur bhur mate sangostos karmani. It's possible to speak for a whole hour on this shloka, but to tell you in brief, it says that one should not be attached to the fruits of one's work. One should do the work as one's responsibility. And that is the part of Seva Bhav, where detachment from the fruit of the work for personal or selfish gains is not the goal of doing the work. And this shloka is very deep actually, because it builds upon this, a basis for karma yoga and of course for bhakti yoga too. One's work is for a larger good. Whereas in Swartha Bhav, the thinking is essentially, what is in it for me? मैं क्यों करूं? Why should I do it if I get nothing in return? मुझे क्या मिल रहा है इसमें? क्यों करना है मेरे को? Why should I do it if no one else is doing it? So even though it is my duty, it may be written there that आपको ये करना है, आपका कर्तव्य है, but still मैं क्यों करूं? वो भी नहीं कर रहा है, कोई नहीं कर रहा है, ऑफिस में कोई आता ही नहीं है, तो मैं क्यों जाके वहां बैठूं? So why should I do it? Anyway, I'm getting my salary. I'm a government employee. Salary तो मिलता ही है, तो मैं क्यों करूं? So this way. वो नेता भी नहीं कर रहा तो मैं क्यों करूं? So how does this increase my profit, my gains, and what do I lose if I don't do it? So this kind of thinking is Swartha Bhav. So essentially in Seva Bhav, the thinking goes, it's consciously cultivated. It doesn't come naturally to everybody. It comes to some people, but not to everyone. What do I maximize the contribution I make? How can I increase the contribution I make and decrease what I return? So in all the examples we gave, the tree or the river or the go mata, take very little for themselves, but give maximum very valuable things in return. But Swartha Bhav is the exact opposite. That's the basis for the modern business thinking, which comes from capitalism. Capitalistic thinking is this: what is the minimum I can contribute, a minimum I can do to ensure that I can maximize my profit? The only reason I'm giving something to this world is because I should get something in return. If it's possible for me to get a lot in return by giving just a little, it is called efficiency. And the efficient person is the more clever person. So give minimum. Don't give if you don't have to give. Give only when you need to give, and only give in a way that will increase your profit. Don't increase your price too much, because if you increase your price too much, the volume sold will go down. The total revenue is the total revenue is price multiplied by the volume of sales. So you have to consider that one goes up, the other comes down. So this kind of thinking. So what will increase our total margin? The net contribution. The fixed costs are the same. So thinking very carefully in all this and trying to maximize the profit without giving a damn about what happens to all those people if my products and services don't reach them, or what happens to them if they reach them. There's no consideration. Similarly, what happens if my products I'm selling, right, have contamination in them? What happens if they are made of fertilizers? What happens if polluting elements go in those products? No, I don't give a damn. As long as people are buying it and as long as I'm making a profit, as long as the government is allowing it, I don't care what comes to them. I want my profits. This is Swartha Bhav. And modern business is based on this, and that's what we are teaching in business schools as well today. That is why we need this thinking in our Indian knowledge system to be taught in the business schools. So Seva Bhav, in the success, one shares the credit with all involved. In failure, one takes responsibility. In Swartha Bhav, exact opposite. In success, take maximum credit even if you have done nothing. And in failure, blame all the others. This is the difference between the two. And that is why Seva Bhav is inspirational. It is so inspirational that even Bhagavan is inspired by it. Even Krishna is inspired when he sees somebody having Seva Bhav in them. And he becomes a servant of those people. That's the reason why he behaves that way in Raja. In Raja, this bhav is present, where the people of Raja, they perform seva with extreme seva bhav. That's the perfection of seva bhav. And Swartha bhav is not present even in one drop, in the smallest quantity in Raja alone. And that's why it is because it Sukha. Atma Sukha is the pure, genuine inner happiness that we naturally experience within ourselves, our Atma. It is very deep and rich in nature, it increases continuously, and it is sustaining. Whereas those with Swartha Bhav, people like Duryodhana or anybody else in this world who is full of this, and that is why in this world today there is so much depression, mental anxiety. The reason for all depression, anxiety is all the presence of Swartha Bhav in some form or the other. We don't even realize it's present. So only when we hear these stories and reflect upon this, reflect upon these properties of Seva Bhav as a Swartha Bhav, and look inside ourselves, we may realize that there is something called Swartha Bhav because of which I'm feeling these anxieties. I'm feeling depression. I'm feeling enormous amount of mental tension. I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling something will go wrong. And there is complete absence of the connection with God in that. So with these words, I will stop. And obviously, the message that we are taking away from Bhagavatam is how can we cultivate Seva Bhav, right? What is it that we can do? The first thing begins with introspection into ourselves. How can we do that to ensure that we get that Seva Bhav? So I will stop with this and I would like to now listen to you. I've been speaking all this time for last 1 hour. Please let me hear your thoughts. Yes, I'm happy to see Ashita again. Ashita, please let me know what you
Good
want.
evening, sir. Pranam.
Yes,
This
Ashita.
session was really insightful. Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Pranam. This
Yes.
session was really insightful, and I could actually relate it with the leader bottleneck mentality and the servant leadership that we were discussing in the
Mm.
last class. Sir, I
Mm.
would like to ask that how can we cultivate seva bhav in the employees? Because as you have also mentioned that nowadays organizations are just focusing on maximizing the profit, and that's what we are teaching our management students as well.
Yes.
So, is there any way to cultivate seva bhav in employees or
Yeah.
the students who are going to be the future leaders?
Yes, very much. There are many ways in which we can do it. And the first way is by making them listen to what is Seva Bhav, like the way we are having in these classes, having formal sessions. In the last 2 days, yesterday and the day before on Friday too, I was holding sessions for people of a particular corporation in India, a huge, big group in India which manufactures steel, not Tata Steel, but some other steel company. And their executives, there were senior leaders in them, the vice presidents of the company, different wings, the general managers, and so on. So I was talking exactly this. Whatever I spoke today, a part of my sessions also covered these topics. We did a couple of cases which I've written based on Ramayana and Mahabharata. There's a story of Bharata meeting Rama from Ramayana, and there's a story of the Ghosha Yatra. Okay, I'll share both these with you, Ashita. You can just send me an email to remind me. You can read them because you are also going to be an academic in the future and you're going to do your research now, and you may get some ideas from there. So through these narratives, we are able to bring out how, you see, in the Bharata Rama episode, when Bharata goes to Vana to meet Rama, this Seva Bhav comes out from both sides. Both of them, with that Seva Bhav, they are trying to tell each other that you do this. And the other person says, no, no, you do this. And both want the other's happiness. Each of them is negotiating with the other for the other person's happiness, not for their own happiness. It's beautiful. It's unbelievable, actually, that two brothers will talk like that. Similarly, in Ghoshayatra, we see Duryodhana going to actually harm Yudhishthira to the forest because he is not happy, even though he has sent Yudhishthira and the Pandavas to the forest. He's still not peaceful. He wants to ensure that they are suffering. He doesn't want to know that they are happy in the forest. He comes to hear that they are in the forest, but they're actually very happy and peaceful, and that makes him disturbed. So it's not enough for him if they are in the forest, but he also wants to know that they are suffering. So he says one way to make them suffer is to go and show off to them. So he goes with his whole army and everything to show off, but ends up getting into a fight with the Gandharvas, and then he's almost killed. And in that state, Yudhishthira comes and saves him and sends him back. So in that story also, we see Yudhishthira's Seva Bhav mentality coming out so beautifully. And I discussed these two cases, and these executives, they were fully, they appreciated. They said, yes, we need this. And they contributed also. They shared their own thoughts and experiences. After all, we are all Indian, right? Whether you're working in a big company or you're doing research, we are born in India, we know what it is. And it's so close to us. And we have been hearing these stories since our childhood. So we know it, but formally nobody has taught us. And now we should formally teach these things. So even in organizations like I tried to do in the last 2 days, and in the future also I'll be doing this. I'll be writing many more cases like this. And I, want many people like you and other academics who are in this field to also join. Some of you are already into academics to also join in doing this, not as a co-author or whatever, doesn't matter. Write on your own, write with me, whatever it is. But these kind of stories should be brought out and people should be trained. And through these programs, people should be formally made aware of why Seva Bhav is important. They should be made aware that by having Seva Bhav and doing work with Seva Bhav, they will actually have a better life. Seva Bhav is not just something to tell for the sake of attracting customers. You see, today in the business world in India, the word seva is used, but the way it is used in a way just to attract customers. हम आपकी सेवा में निर्भर हैं. People use this language, right? If you go on a flight, they will say that, we were so happy to have you on board and we look forward to the next occasion. There's an automatically recorded message. They are not saying it with any bhav actually. It's a recorded message that we hear, okay, the say flight has landed and, we are happy. We wish you a happy stay in this place. And then we look forward to your thing up to do seva to you again. But what do they mean by seva? It's just a word there. They don't mean anything. They just mean that we want you to come back so that we can now get some more marginal profit from you. That's all they mean. But we should train employees to think that that's not the meaning of seva. Seva genuinely means that we want to give you something by which you are happy. Of course, we need to take some profit from you because we have to maintain ourselves. So profit should be taken only from that perspective, not from a maximization perspective. And that is how the Indian business system was designed. The Vaishyas, they were trained to think like this. Even today, there are so many people, I know people in business who think like this, who do seva. They use all the money they get for doing dan, for doing go seva, and they live a simple life. Although they are millionaires, they are billionaires, they can live in great luxury, but they don't live in great luxury. They live far below their economic, worth, because they want to use their money only for seva because they deeply believe that this is pleasing to Bhagavan by doing this. So this should be brought into repeatedly telling people, because just by telling people once or twice, this will not, go inside. After all, we are all human beings and our anarthas, our contamination is there. But by having training programs regularly, Shravanam, bar bar Shravan karke, this can be spread. This can be spread in our country. And I believe it is very much possible to do it. We have to do it. So we will bring this into your research, and I am sure that you can bring in elements of Seva Bhav, like you talked about the leader, those theories that you mentioned last time, which come from the Western world. But yes, we can now bring in insights into the same theories and show how they enrich that theory much better, and then do the research along with the Indian component in it. That way, it becomes an IKS based research. Very much possible. Chinmay, you raised your hand.
Yes, sir. I have a few pointers. And
Yeah,
first one,
please.
that uh, how means as you mentioned, these two are the means we can consider these two at the extreme edge. So, sir, and mostly people are lying in the middle of the two. So, sir, how can we ensure that we are at the one end, like on the one side, that is on the seva bhav, and is it realistically possible to do so? That is my first question. And second point is that an example that I would like is that when I was interning during my undergraduate, while on my journey towards my company, I found that there was a old person. Means it was a summer time and he was asking for some water. Means the people were not present. Means not that much people were present around. So I was able to offer some water to him. He was relieved at that time. So that was one instance of seva. So yeah, these are the 2 pointers I have as of now.
Thank you. I could understand the second one where you said you gave water to an elderly person who was helpless. Is that right? Your voice
Yes,
was actually cracked, so I'm trying to repeat what you said so that I can ensure that I heard the right thing. And you felt happy about it. You felt happy about doing that. Is that right?
yes,
Yeah, good. That's nice to hear. Thank you for sharing that. The earlier one that you mentioned was about you said you're saying that there are a lot of people who are having a lot of swartha bhav in them. So how do we how do we bring it? Is it practically possible to bring seva bhav into such people also? Is that what you're asking?
so, sir, I was saying that most of the people lie in between of these two ends, that is
Yeah,
Seva as well as Svartha. So, sir,
yeah,
is it realistically possible uh, to lie at the one end that is on the Seva Bhav? Is it realistically possible to do so? Practically possible to do so in this?
yeah, yeah. The reason why I think it's practically possible, first of all, in my understanding, seva bhav and swartha bhav are not two ends of a spectrum, of the same spectrum. They are two independent constructs. They both have their own scales. So a person can have a mix of both of them. And most people are like that. Most people, there is, like I said in the earlier part of this session, that it's very difficult to find somebody who is a perfect Vrajavasi or a perfect Yudhishthira. And it's also very difficult to find somebody who is a perfect Duryodhana, who is a perfect opposite of a Vrajavasi. That's also very difficult to find. You won't find somebody who is perfectly like that too. Everybody has got a mix of, at some level, they have seva bhav in them with that jnana, and some level, there is also swartha bhav. Now, the extent to which they are present, they will decide how easy it is to make a person more oriented towards seva bhav. Now, if somebody has got a dominance of seva bhav in them, even if there is a little bit of swartha bhav, then by giving this knowledge, it is easy to amplify that seva bhav even further. By listening to Bhagavatam and this Seva Bhav of the Vrajvasis and reading the analysis of Seva Bhav, like the one I showed you today. There are many more analyses like this done in the commentaries by the Acharyas on the Bhagavatam. By reading those analyses, one gets to know very beautiful insights on Seva Bhav, which we can bring out and tell them, and that amplifies our sense of Seva Bhav. Now, if Seva Bhav is dominant in somebody and Swartha Bhav is not so dominant, then it's easy to amplify that. But if Swartha Bhav is dominant and Seva Bhav is still there in some small measure, even then it's not a hopeless case, because uh, it's just like, you can say a wet matchstick. A matchstick has got normally that what is it called, that chemical in it, that portion which is inflammable, and when it is dry, when there is no moisture, then that will immediately strike and catch fire. But if there is a good amount of moisture present, then you have to do it a number of times and it takes a long time, it will eventually catch fire. So it's possible that even with Swartha Bhav, somebody with a little bit of Seva Bhav, by sufficiently listening to this, if you treat them properly and if you give them adequate opportunity to listen to this. Now, in an organization, I think it's all the more possible, because in an organization, just like I told you, I had this training sessions. In this training session, there were 25 people. Now, the 25 people, I'm sure, all of them don't have the same level of Seva Bhav or the same level of Swartha Bhav. There could be some with more Seva Bhav, some with less Seva Bhav, and vice versa. And among them, because if they had given them the choice, do you want to attend a lecture? Some professor from XLRI is going to take 3 sessions on Ramayana and Mahabharata. Do you want to attend? Some of them would have readily said yes, but some of them would have said no. If you give us a choice, we won't attend. But they had no choice. So they all attended. All the 25 of them attended, and many of them participated actively, and they were giving their thoughts, ideas, questions, and so on. And by hearing this, even a person who attended the lecture out of compulsion, not because they wanted to attend, because somebody made them attend, but they heard this. Now they heard this and they saw their other colleagues also taking interest in it. Slowly, that Seva Bhav in them may start rising. They may start thinking, okay, there is something in it. There is something that others are showing interest. Credibility starts coming and interest starts coming. So this way I believe, for this reason I believe that if we are able to bring this into the education system, see, if I just stand under a tree and start talking, that's how a lot of things happen today, right? Some Baba is speaking somewhere, and people think it's only for the Babas to talk about all this. It's not a part of education system. But now the government has brought this into the education system. So in the education system, if from childhood people are taught like this, that is how it was in the Indian knowledge system. It is not something we have to introduce now. It is something we have to restore. It was there earlier. The British came and removed it. Now we have to bring it back. If you are able to bring it back properly, and then parallelly take it into companies, take it to whichever formal context we can, and make people attend and listen to them in a nice manner, then many people, even the wet matchsticks, will catch fire. That's what I believe. Chinmay, does it address what you are asking me?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Good, good. So please do feel free to meet me. You're in your second year and you'll be soon. Are you already placed, Chinmay? Or
So
you're on the
there
way to
is,
get placed?
yes, sir. I am sitting for finals. There is no any information from the company that I entered in SIP.
You said what? You're sitting for final placement for some particular company?
Yes, sir. I am sitting for final placement from SIP firm. There is no any response regarding the replacement offer as well.
Okay, right now there's no response, and I really wish you get it soon, because once you get, then you will get more peace of mind and you will be able to probably spend more time. If you spend time with me, I'll introduce you to more, the expanse of the Indian knowledge system, and then I would encourage you to spend time and explore this in more detail. So when you go into your corporate world, you can think of ways by which you can spread this there. Yeah,
Thank you.
Udit has raised his hand.
Hi, Pranam sir, good evening. Sir, my question might not be exactly pinpointed, but I was just thinking about it. Just that, for example, if let's say there's a father or a mother with a son, and the son, let us say, already has specs, and he's having some power, and he's small kid, maybe 5 6 years old, and then he says that I want a PlayStation, right, just for playing purposes. Now at that point, the father or the mother could have both the bhavs at the same time, seva and swart. Seva in the sense that if he says no, he's actually doing good to that kid, that you know what, your eyes are already not very good, not in a great shape. Playing, having a PlayStation will probably make it worse. So I'm just wanting better for you. So that's like a seva bhav from the father's this thing. But maybe it's also on the fact that a PlayStation costs say around 50,000, and me, let's say I'm the father and I'm thinking that you know what, there have been times that I've been facing financial difficulties. So you know, some sort of swarth bhav also comes into me, that you know, that let's not use this money because I want to keep it for myself. So how does that a person distinguish, or how can you say that there is one particular uh, say majority factor, 60%, 40%? How does this play out in a situation like this?
So here, this is a very fine question because it deals with an individual's seva bhav, swartha bhav. Now, it is not possible for me or for you or for anybody outside to judge another person's level of seva bhav or swartha bhav, because only thing that we can make out is what they tell us through their mouth or we observe through their actions externally. But what is actually in the mind and in the heart, only they can discover by introspection. That is why in our Indian knowledge system, this concept of manan is there. Manam, Atma Vichar is a process through which manan is done, contemplation on one's own mentality. It begins there, not about what other person is thinking about me, but about what I am thinking about the world. How do I think about other things? What consideration did I have when I, for example, bought a PlayStation for my son or did not buy a PlayStation for my son? Why did I buy or not buy? What was I thinking? Am I really doing it for his good or for my good or for everybody's good? What exactly do I want? So, this contemplation, what should I want? What should be my mentality? What is my mentality? What is my mentality now and what should it be? This is where Shastra Gyan, referring to what the Shastra says and comparing one's own thinking with that thinking. By this mananam, doing it again and again and again and again and again, this is the process. That's called nididhyasana. Nididhyasana means going deep into that manan, doing that manan as a thing. Of course, it doesn't mean daydreaming. It means doing it, especially when we sit for japa meditation. We do manan along with that. We contemplate on not only the mantra. Mantra, of course, is most important. But after we contemplate on the mantra around that, surrounding that is this nididhyasana, that, am I doing it the right way? Am I thinking correctly? Am I having jealousy in me? Am I having hatred in me? Am I doing this action out of my swarth, or am I doing it as a seva? Am I going beyond my limits? All kind of contemplation happens, and then one comes out of that meditation thinking, okay, today will be a better day for me than before. So only by this the person can sort it out. Otherwise, this question cannot be answered. It is not like a doctor treating a patient based on a disease that they observe through their
Hmm.
through instruments, right? This cannot be observed by outsiders.
But sir, generally, wouldn't it happen that you would probably think that, you know, I'm doing a seva bhav instead of, I mean, that the general tendency that we have, that
Yeah,
whenever
yeah.
we ask somebody that, you know, how many of you know empathy, they'll say everybody knows. Then how many of you practice? They'll say yes. And then there
Yes.
comes a situation where they're not able to do it. So,
So this honesty with ourselves is the first thing. Yes, absolutely agree with you. We have a bias, we have a weakness by which we tend to justify ourselves and tend to find fault with the other person. And this tendency comes from our own swartha bhav, that
hmm,
we are very kind to ourselves and very harsh to others. But actually, we should be more critical of ourselves than of others.
hmm,
We have to be critical of self-critical. That ability to be self-critical without losing self-esteem. See, being self-critical is not about losing one's self-esteem or self-confidence.
hmm,
Self-criticality is a process to build confidence. By being self-critical and saying that, okay, there is a weakness in me, but now I will correct it. So there is a saying in the Western world, I'm borrowing this, that every day is the first day of the rest of your life.
hmm,
Makes sense, right? Or
yes,
you can go to an even micro level and say every moment is the first moment of the rest of our life.
yes.
Therefore, even though I have had this weakness in me so far, one can say, one realizes by critical examination internally that I had this weakness, and then one says, okay, I've had this weakness, doesn't mean I should have it forever, but now I will give it up. I will stop it right now. And from this moment onwards, I will not have it again. So by saying this and by looking at oneself critically, one develops that inner purity and confidence. And when that purity comes, that confidence also comes. And when a situation requires that one has to genuinely offer a critique to somebody else, one is able to do it. Because if one is self-critical, one has the ability to be self-critical, one gets the strength to be genuinely critical when it's required, not loosely critical, but genuinely critical when it is actually required as a teacher or as a superior in a company. You have to sometimes be critical of others. And when you have to do that, you will do it properly because you have been critical of yourself too.
Hmm.
So self-criticality and self-evaluation and correction is a very core process in the Bharatiya Samskriti. There is no self-praise. There's no show, even to oneself. One becomes very cautious about self-praise.
So in most of the companies, it's required that you keep propagating yourself. I mean, even if you have not done something very great, you try to show it in a way that there's a lot of good things that you have done,
Yeah.
and sort of is one of the reasons that people keep promoting. They'll have their own agendas to
This
drive.
is typical Western culture, typical, especially American culture, even more than European. Europeans also, you see, are a little more like Indians. They're more
Hmm.
like Bharatiyas. But if you see the modern Americans, they strongly believe in this. They say that they teach their children, this is how you have to present yourself. You have to talk about yourself. You have to say what is good about you. You should be, of course, they also say you should talk about your limitations. But first you should say, I have done this, I have achieved this, I have done this, I am so great, this and that. That's very important. Otherwise, it looks like if you don't say it, like in India, see what does the Bharatiya Samskriti say? Bharatiya Samskriti tells us to present ourselves very modestly. So Indians, by default, even when they go to the US, present themselves very modestly with the head bowed down. And the Westerners, they interpret that as a sense of lack of self-esteem or lack of confidence. They think we are like, the small plants growing in the wild. We don't have any strength in us. So then they train Indians there to become like, talk like dadas, become, and the Indians, after they stay for some time, they start talking like that. They start speaking like that. So we have to be careful. Now that we are listening to Shastra, we have to be careful to, okay, we may have to exhibit that behavior sometimes in our company too, in some situation. For example, there's a formal process in a company, and now even in XLR it's there. That's called self-appraisal. So when you do your self-appraisal, you have to declare all the great things you have achieved in the last 1 year. And so there, you're expected to praise yourself. You're expected to show all the good things and also, of course, be genuine, not falsely praise yourself. The company
Hmm.
will catch you and send you out if you say something false. You have to genuinely say what you have done, but you have to say what you have done in a big way. You have to show, highlight it. And so if the company's process requires it and you are employed in that company, doing that job, then you must do that. It is expected. But when you do it, you know, because you have learned from Shastra that it is not Seva Bhav to do that. It is part of the job. It's Kartavyata. So you do it.
That's like karma yoga.
Yeah, it's part of Karma Yoga. But then you come out of it when you say,
Hmm.
in other situations, when you don't have to do that, then you don't do it. When
Hmm.
you talk to
Hmm.
your colleagues, when you talk to others, you conduct yourself like a proper Bharatiya. And you will see
Hmm.
that it's something that natural conduct in that manner, in that Sanskritic way, actually pleases people. People like that. Just like Krishna likes the Vrajavasis in a company, even if they don't know all this theory, they will like the nature of that person, a person who is like that. That will naturally give you, a very, very good experience with other colleagues and so on. Even though that may not be your goal, but you like it. You also will get a very likable experience because people will like you when you do that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Chinmay, yes, you have raised your hand again.
Sir, last question. Sir, which yoga, Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga is superior, or are all yogas at same level, whichever yoga we.
All forms of yoga, the word yoga essentially has seva bhav in it. But yes, there is a distinction in the way in which seva bhav is practiced, and that is called taratamya. Taratamya means the fine gradations between those who have seva bhav. Even among those who have seva bhav, there are fine gradations. So there is a gradation between the seva bhav that Arjuna and Yudhishthira have compared to the seva bhav that Vrajvasis have. The people like Yashoda and Nanda have. There's a difference between Nanda's seva bhav and Vasudeva's seva bhav. Both are fathers of Krishna. Krishna relates with both of them like father, like a son. So this fine difference comes. So between Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, there is a difference in seva bhav. All of them are based on seva bhav. Seva bhav is an essential element in all yoga. So this is a finer discussion and I will explain to you more. We're planning to start this Gita formal study in the near future. Ashita will lead that effort. And at that point of time, we will go into these details again in more detail. The difference between Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, and how the bhav differs in them.
Thank you, sir.
Subhashish, you have raised your hand. Subhashish? Subhashish? Can you hear me? No? I think you're not able to unmute yourself. Okay, we'll come back to you. Ashita has raised her hand. Ashita?
Hello, sir.
Okay, Subhashish, I can hear you now, but
Yes, sir. Actually, I've been facing terrible issues of the network, it seems,
okay.
because I was continuously getting disconnected. I did raise a couple of.
Okay. I can hear you now. Would you like to ask your question? Hello? Subhashish, where are you? You've gone off my screen. Okay.
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, now
Sir,
you're.
am I audible, sir?
Yeah,
Sir,
now.
am I audible, sir? Yeah, sir, I think the network is an issue. That's why I got disconnected. I thought, sir, wanted to share a couple of things, sir. So for my understanding is one of the things, and sir, please do correct if I'm wrong. So the explanation that we see in the leadership literature around transaction and transformation leadership, the Swartbhava and the Seva Bhava can be looked at from that lens. And where the Seva Bhava is mostly the transformational leadership that we see in action, wherein that talks about genuine empathy and selflessness and putting the other interests of the team in front and the overall objectives in front, whereas the transactional leadership talks about in terms of the dyadic nature, where it is more mercenary and more transactional, and how is it helping the individual rather than the overall team in that sense. I could relate that part very well. I don't know, say if that is
Yes,
a correct understanding or
absolutely.
is there a wrong understanding in an organizational context.
Absolutely. It's analogous. It's analogous to what we are talking. Absolutely. It's analogous to what we are talking. And that's
Am I
why I said,
audible?
yeah,
Hello,
can you
sir.
hear me? Can you hear
Hello.
me? Hello, can you
Hello,
hear me?
sir. Hello.
I can hear you.
Hello.
I can hear you. I can hear you. I think you're not able to hear me probably. I can hear you. No problem. Okay, I'll come back to you, Subhashish. Ashita? Ashita?
Sir, I was wondering whether the Triguna personality has any association with the Swart Bhav and the Seva Bhav.
Which personality?
Triguna personality that we talk about.
The
Rajas,
three
Gun.
gunas.
Yeah.
The three gunas of Prakriti. Yeah. Triguna personality may be a term that somebody has written in the paper. So we say the three gunas of Prakriti. Prakriti is material nature. The three gunas which constitute Prakriti. I will explain them to you in some future occasion. Yes, of course. So Swartha Bhav is ultimately driven by the three gunas of Prakriti, and so is Seva Bhav. Seva Bhav is also influenced by three gunas of Prakriti, except the perfection of Seva Bhav. When Seva Bhav becomes more and more perfect, it gets out of the three gunas. The three gunas are actually pulling that bhav down. The three gunas are, all the three of them are negative influences. Among them, the best is Sattva Guna. Guna is the least negative, you can say. The best among the three, the most positive or the least negative is Sattva Guna. Sattva Guna actually elevates us. It takes us away from Swartha Bhav and takes us more towards Seva Bhav. But still in Sattva Guna too, there is Swartha Bhav present, and it fosters Swartha Bhav. So ultimately, when one is able to free oneself even from Sattva, then perfection of Seva Bhav is possible. So how this is so, I will explain in more detail when we understand the three gunas There's a lot of theory on three gunas in Bhagavad-Gita and in the Bhagavatam and the other Shastra too. We will talk about it. Yes.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Subhashish, you're back. Are you able to hear us now? We could hear you all the time. Okay, I think maybe Jayashree, if you have your phone with you, you can call Subhashish and tell him that we have difficulty. We will connect with him on the phone later. Jayashree can call him and tell him that if you have his number. I don't have my phone here.
I don't have his number. Maybe after class we can.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat. Let him see it in the chat. We can close the class now since we're reaching the end of class time. We can call Subhashish or message him that
Okay.
maybe the audio had a problem. We will talk to him later. Om स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महीं महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यो शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे धन्यवादाः. We meet again next Sunday. Thank you.